Hello, my name is Jeremy Barnes, and today I'm going to be doing a review for A Quiet Place Part 2. So, I'll first give you my overall thoughts, and I thought the movie was very good, but just because it is a sequel, I'm going to compare it to the first movie. And compared to the first, I would say I would still prefer the first one slightly. I think there are parts of this one that are better than the first one, but overall, I think I like the first one more. But they're both like pretty close in my opinion. I would say one main reason why this one isn't quite as strong is because it's a little bit more predictable in what's going to happen, mostly because we know the rules already from the first movie, and there's not as much tension in like finding out what the aliens are because we've already seen them from the first one. Like in the first one, they don't show us the aliens but close, really, until close to the end of the movie. But we do see quite a bit of them early on in the second one. And then this is just a note. It doesn't have anything to do with how much I like the movie or anything, but I noticed that this one is a little less quiet than the first one. So I really liked in the first movie how the sound was used in the movie. Like it was a really quiet movie, which I think added to the feeling like of you. It kind of puts you in the movie in a way because of how quiet it was. And this one does that a little less because there is more parts that have sound in them. So it just kind of has a different feeling to it, pretty much. So the next thing I'm going to talk about, since it's a horror film, is the scare factor of it. And for definitely scarier than the first, in my opinion. And I think the aliens even feel more threatening to me. I don't know what about it. Maybe it's just that we see them pretty much just killing way more humans in this one, like groups of humans, like not even just a single human every now and again. It's like they're just demolishing people left and right. So they just seem more scary in that way. And they pretty much just smash everything in their path. But this one, the scares are more jump scares instead of like, I think in the first one, it's more kind of like building tension because we didn't know about the aliens really that much, and we're kind of just trying to find out what was happening in the first one. But overall, I think the way they did it here was scarier than the way it was in the first movie. So now I'm going to talk about the characters, and I'm going to first talk about the new characters. So the main new character is a character named Emmett, and he was a good character. I would say he's kind of like a darker version of Lee, the dad from the first movie. The reason why I say that is because he has a similar role to the dad in the first one, but I'm not gonna go too much into it right now. So another new character is this one guy played by Jimon Hanso. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right, but he's basically the leader of another group of people in the movie that the Abbott family runs into. That's the family's name from the first movie. Um, so yeah, so they cross paths and it's this guy. So he was pretty good, but I feel like he was underused. Like he could have been used a little bit more in the movie. And I'll talk about him a little bit later when I go into the spoilers. It'll be at the end of this video. But I definitely would have liked to see him a little bit more, basically. So now I'm going to talk about the returning characters from the first movie. And I'm going to start off with the daughter of the first movie. I think her name is Regan, unless it's pronounced Regan. I'm not sure. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the first one because these two movies really do tie together very well. So one thing I'll say is that in the first movie, the kids were a little careless compared to the adults. And like specifically the girl, I was a little bit annoyed by her in the first one because spoilers for the first movie, she was like seemingly blaming her dad for her brother's death, but at the same time she was feeling responsible. And like I don't know, they weren't really communicating, or she wasn't really communicating about it. I don't know if they ever like talked about what happened to their brother in any way. Like it might have been hard to because they can't talk out loud, and she actually can't really talk because she is deaf. But it was technically both of their faults because in that scene in the beginning when that happens in the first movie, the youngest of their children grabs the toy and the dad takes it away and he leaves it there. He takes the batteries out so that it doesn't make any noise, but he leaves the batteries right where he put the toy. And then the girl, she gets the toy without the batteries and gives it to the boy, but then she also leaves the batteries there. And then the boy gets the batteries back and puts it in there, and then he makes the noise, and that's why he dies. So they both pretty much messed up. And then I don't know like which way would have been better, but the parents also messed up by having the boy be at the very end of the line when they were walking. So one of them should have been at the very end of the line so they could see everybody else, like all their kids. So they messed up on that part too. But anyway, the point is in this movie, the girl is a little careless, but I would say that she's at least like a little smarter. She basically wants to be like her dad, probably because of his like sacrifice for them. So now she wants to be the type of person that he was, and she found out that the type of person he was, which is good, and that he cares about all of his family, and he would do anything to save them. So she applies that to others, even people she doesn't know. She wants to save and help anybody she can, which now that she's figured out a weakness for the aliens, she wants to use that to fight back against them. And then Marcus, who is the son, he on the other hand is more focused on his own family survival than anybody else. And he's also still pretty careless in this movie as well. And then as for Evelyn, the mom, she's still a badass, but in this one she has a more limited role compared to her role in the first movie because I think the kids kind of take more of the front seat in this one. And then also the new character Emmett, like I feel like he has a more significant role than Emily Blunt did in this one. But we do see a flashback to day one of the invasion of the aliens. So we do see Lee again in that sequence, and he was a badass there, just like he was in the movie. So he's been a badass since day one. I'm not sure if he has any military training or what, but it is a possibility because in that first scene there is reference to somebody that does seem to be in the military. So I don't know if he knows him through there or if he just knows him through one of their neighbors in the town that they live in. But either way, like he knows what he's doing. Like he's pretty smart and methodical. But I also just want to mention the baby who was actually the best character in this movie. No, I'm just kidding. But the baby's there still. It's like supposed to be a newborn, so it doesn't really do much because the movie takes place pretty much right after the first one. Now I'm gonna start to go a little bit more into some specifics of the movie. So I'm gonna talk about day one, which is how the movie starts off. And day one, I honestly is probably my favorite part of the movie. I think it was an amazing sequence, and the thing that was really cool about it is that it eases you into it. It starts off with the family at a baseball game for the circus, and the dad goes on a grocery run, and it's the same grocery store that the first movie was in with the little boy and the little rocket ship. So it's the same town, so they visit the same locations in this movie as they did in the first one, including both the day one before the invasion and then also later on in the events that take place after the first movie. But once the invasion finally does hit, it hits hard. Like it's a really intense and wild sequence, and the way that it was shot really added to the chaotic nature of it, and it was really good. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time, and that's like one of the moments, like right off the bat, where we see the aliens, and they seem more threatening than they even were in the first movie. So that's a little bit of a spoiler free talk about it, but now I'm gonna go into like the specific, really nitty gritty details into the spoilers. So about day one, that the character of Emmett is actually introduced there, and he is one of the like neighbors or friends of the Abbott family. I don't know how close they are. Like I don't know if they just like talk when they see each other out in public, or if they're like if they go to each other's house or anything like that. But we see him there, and actually he has a son. But we find out later in the film that his son ends up dying that same day that the invasion first starts. So he's been through a lot himself as well. And this movie also introduces a human group that are like antagonistic. So that was cool because we didn't see anything like that really in the first movie. The closest thing was like people that would commit suicide by screaming and just like accepting their fate from the aliens, but they didn't like purposely try to kill others or do anything like bad to them. But in this one, we do see that, and Emmett talks about there being bad people, like how bad people have become in this world. And the group we see, it's not like 100% clear, but it is highly possible that they were a group of cannibals. So they caused some trouble, and the movie gets back to the end of the events of the first movie. It starts off the day after. So the family reunites with Emmett, who they haven't seen seemingly since day one of the invasion. Like they haven't seen him at all this entire time. But another thing that this movie has is more action than the first one. Like the first one was really quiet. Like we see one day where like there's not really any action at all. Like a whole day is given to that. But here, I think something kind of like happens pretty much every day that we see, you know. And that includes that day when they first reunite with Emmett. Like right away, there's some action that happens, and at the end of the first movie, it was implied that the two that were left over after they killed one of the three aliens that they thought was in their like vicinity, the area they were in, uh, it was implied that they went to the house, but it doesn't seem like that's the case in this one, unless they did go, but they stayed silent and they never went downstairs, so they never found them and they just left. I'm not sure. Like it doesn't show that really, but they basically there's a sequence where we do see those other two come back again, and then it's the day after that we see that other human group that is more antagonistic. And I don't know, they seem like a cult, like maybe you could consider them that, but I don't know, there's not really any rules in a world like this where it's kind of like a living in an apocalypse. But that sequence was also really cool because we see people use sound against other people, basically to either lure the aliens to them so that obviously they're not attacked by them, or just as a distraction to the aliens, you know. And one thing that was cool about that is that something that happened in day one between Emmett and the girl, Regan, is that he doesn't know sign language, so he asked her like, how do you sign to dive? Because the baseball game, they were telling the son to dive, like for the base. So she tells him it's like that. So he uses that in this situation when the cannibals or whatever the group is comes and attacks them pretty much. So I thought that was a really cool thing that they like set up early in the movie, and then it had like some payoff in that moment. So that was cool. I always like little touches like that in movies. And then we find out that there was a song that somebody was playing and you were able to hear on the radio, and it was Beyond the Sea. And the girl figures out that it's a message, like it's not just a random song. It's a message telling people to go beyond the sea, and there's an island like off the coast of wherever they are. Um, and that's like where her brains come in this movie. Like she's not completely useless or like just careless and makes silly mistakes, but she actually has a good idea. The only thing is, at first she tries to go by herself, which in my opinion was pretty stupid. Like I feel like she should have told everybody. She should have told her mom, and maybe they would have just went together, and she would have had somebody to help her do that instead of going by herself, which she most likely probably would have died if nobody came to save her. And it's not because she's not capable; it's just because it's like impossible, pretty much. Like all the odds are against her. It has to be at least two people, and two people did seem to do the job. But when they get to the island, that was a pretty cool like revelation. Like we see people just like celebrating like nothing, like they're pretty much free there because we find out that the aliens can't swim, so they can't get to the island because it's too far unless they landed there directly, like how they came to Earth in the first place. So now that we're talking about spoilers, I also wanted to mention the island leader again, the one played by Jimon Hansao, and I feel like they did his character kind of dirty. Like I feel like he could have done more because he seemed also pretty smart because it seemed like it was his idea to play that song as a message for people to find them. But then he ends up just dying, making a silly mistake because they were luring the monsters that had gotten back onto the island from a boat away from all the people, but he thought that maybe they lost it and it went back, and that's when they got him. And I didn't really like that because I feel like this movie kind of fell into the whole horror movie trope of the black characters dying, because it was not only him but also the cop in day one. But there was a black police officer who also died right away, and it seemed like Lee also knew him. So like he had the potential to be a bigger character. Like he could have survived there. And they could have like crossed paths with him later in the movie, like now in the present day. But no, all the black characters die in the movie, so I don't know. I didn't really like that personally. But I thought it was a good idea what the girl was trying to do, and have her hearing aid thing, which the sound that it makes is it harms the aliens. So she was gonna use that to broadcast it on the radio so that anybody could use a radio that has that channel or whatever to fight back against the aliens. But I kind of feel like the ending should have just been the like actual sound. I mean, I don't know, maybe people would have thought that it was annoying to have that sound play, but instead in the movie it was like music playing in that part of the movie. And I feel like it was supposed to add, like make it kind of like more dramatic, but I feel like for me it kind of was dramatic but in a kind of cheesy way. So I feel like it would have been a little bit cooler if it was just the actual sound that was coming out from it. But I don't know, maybe that's just me. And either way, that is a small thing. Like it doesn't change how I feel about the movie in any major way, but it's just something that I felt and thought about. But I thought it was pretty cool how in this movie the kids were front and center, and they got like the most action to do in a way. and they both finish off two separate aliens in two separate places, because it makes the dad's sacrifice in the first movie more impactful, because we see that the kids were using their life that he let them live by sacrificing himself to fight back. So I thought that was really cool. That's pretty much all I'm going to say for my review. So thank you for watching. I highly recommend the movie. It's currently only playing in theaters, but it will be on Paramount Plus, which is Paramount's new streaming service, pretty soon. So you could get that if you want, if you don't already have it. Either way, you could watch at the movies, you could wait for that, both. But I highly recommend checking it out, especially if you have seen and liked the first one. So thank you for watching my video. I'll see you next time, and goodbye. Peace.